Episode 2: A Dry Place. The next couple of days were long and hard on both of them, but Bright Eyes learned fast, and so did Cat for that matter. They each learned to work together when hunting. After the second day, Bright Eyes was able to understand some hand signs. The bird was way smarter than he could have hoped for. It seemed to almost know what he was thinking at times. He was going to really enjoy having him around. He had never made any friends around home. Most of his time was spent working the farm or reading about faraway places he would never get to see. His mother had made sure that he was able to read at a young age. They lived too far out from town for him to go back and forth to school each day. They would make the trip once a week and visit the small library. He was able to bring 2 books a week home to read. One was always about plants and farming, and the other could be about anything. In late afternoon the sky began to cloud up, and he knew that it would rain soon after sundown, so he began to look for a place to make camp for the night where they could stay dry. He was glad that he did not have to sit out a storm by himself. He found a cave that was tucked back in a long box canyon. He did not have time to look it over. It was almost dark, and he went to find firewood after telling Bright Eyes to sit. After a few minutes, he had plenty for the night inside the cave opening. Bright Eyes seemed at ease, so he was sure that the cave was empty. He did not bother to look deeper than a few yards. He had a good fire going by the time it got too dark, and had put on some water for blackroot tea. Before the water was hot enough for tea, the first drops of rain hit the ground, and within minutes it was a full-blown storm. Bright Eyes sat cleaning his feathers. His beak clacked away in a rhyme that made him feel at ease. His thought of his mother. She was getting old, and soon the upkeep on the farm would be too much for her to deal with by herself. He liked the farm life, but really would rather be on the hunt. He was not too sure if he could spend the rest of his life bound only to the land. Having Bright Eyes may just be the way to have both types of life. He could now hunt farther from home, and now did not have to be limited to what he himself could carry. He may be able to hire someone to help out his mother. Meat and fur were always in demand. He had made himself one of the finest bows anyone had seen in town, and he was one of the best archers around, having won the last 2 contests. It was how he had brought the small sword and bow he had. He had a feeling that having Bright Eyes around was going to change a lot of things about his life. They had covered 3 times the distance than he could have by walking, and even killed 2 more water foxes and a large tree rat. He dressed them out and cooked some fox for himself, and he gave Bright Eyes some of the tree rat raw, who cooed in delight. He noticed that the cave looked as if it had not been used before, which he found hard to believe. He knew that not many came this close to the mountains, but this would have been a great base campsite for hunting. He would remember where it was so he could return someday. There was a lot of game in the area. He had removed the packs from Bright Eyes and was laying back on them as he tooled on a wood flute. It was not the first one he had made, but it was going to be the finest one, he thought. It was a sea serpent wrapped around a tree log. It was going to be a gift for his mother's birthday. He had no clue how old she was, and knew better than to ask, but she was no spring chicken. Her auburn hair was almost gray, and it was hard for her to do much more than feed the animals and cook dinner. He was surprised that there was little wind and no lightning, just a hard downpour of rain. It was so loud he could not hear the clicking of Bright Eyes' beak as he cleaned his feathers. He was glad that they were not out in it. There was no worry about anything dangerous being out hunting in this, he thought as he put away the flute and lay back. He was glad he had the fire. The cold had come with the wet. He would sleep well. It was not long before he slipped into dreams of Bright Eyes and him hunting on the edge of a large woods. There was a clear blue morning sky, and he could hear birds in the trees singing away as if they had no cares in the world to worry about. Bright Eyes was moving just within the trees to flash out whatever may be there, and he had an arrow at the ready. Next to him was a pile of hopabouts and one rare tree bouncer, which was light pink and the biggest that he had ever seen. The sky began to darken with clouds at an unreal speed. He looked up and thought it was going to storm soon. He whistled for Bright Eyes and began to pick up his kills when there was a loud crash just within the woods. He He looked up just in time to see Bright Eyes fly from the trees and land not moving 15 feet in front of him. Fly, he thought. He could not fly. A tree fell and out of the woods came a large black dragon. He was frozen till the beast roared and then he jumped or more so stumbled back. Rain began to fall as the sky darkened to a deep blue-black. Lightning flashed into the trees nearby and flames sprang to life. The smoke blew between him and the dragon, making it hard for him to see it. Then the wind whipped it around and blew it right into his face. It was here that he woke up with smoke covering his face. He sat up and saw that the fire was now no longer fully burning, most of it was smoking. He looked out and was shocked by what he realized about the cave. The whole canyon was now a river of fast-moving water and it was rising into the cave. It had reached the fire. He grabbed one of the still burning limbs and held it up. The pile of wood was still dry, so he threw a few of the limbs deeper into the cavern to keep it dry. Bright Eyes just sat there as if nothing was wrong, or he did not understand that they were in any kind of trouble. Now he understood why the cave had not been used. He had never thought it could rain that much at one time. He was mad at himself for not seeing this as a possibility. He had known of flash floods, but this seemed a bit hard to believe could happen. There was no way that they could swim for it. The water was moving way too fast. There was really only one way they could move, and that was deeper into the cave as the water rose. Thankfully the cave moved up the deeper they moved. Within an hour the area that was the camp was underwater. He hoped the cave was deeper and higher than the water would get.